Welcome. We are recording, just to let you know that. We do love seeing people on video, so if you're brave to do it, that would be great as well. Dr. Elise Stephenson is the Deputy Director of the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, which was founded and chaired by former Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. Elise is a multi-award winning, I'm getting admission, so I'm doing that at the same time. She is a multi-award winning gender researcher with an entrepreneurial background whose work focuses on intervening at critical junctures to ensure equality in frontier international affairs and grand challenges. She is a collaborative leader dedicated to excellence and innovation, recognized by Google as one of Australia's top 50 outstanding LGBTIQ+ leaders, the United Nations Australia Association as a community awardee, and myriad other external and academic awards, including being a recipient of the Chancellor's Medal for Excellence in PhD research and several other awards that I could continue to list, but I'll go on in the bio. Elise's research, which she's going to touch on today, focuses on gender, sexuality, and leadership in frontier international relations, from researching space policy to diplomacy, national security, intelligence, security vetting, international representation, and the Asia Pacific. She's interested in how Australia engages with the world, as well as who is at the forefront of that engagement. She has international experience from Sweden to the US, Hong Kong, China, Japan, and ASEAN, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Elise has published internationally, led multi-scaled research and engagement projects in public diplomacy and national security, and has a deep embedded understanding of the Australian context for leadership, governance, and international affairs. So I am just delighted. We are delighted to have you join us, Elise. I do want to say, last but not least, we're lucky in that Dr. Stephenson is the author of a forthcoming book called The Face of the Nation, Women in International Affairs, which is being published by Oxford University Press. It's available for pre-order, and I believe Elise said it would be published by early January 2024. So we're going to hear a bit about findings in that book as well. So thank you so much for being here. We're honored to have you. I wanted to start, congratulations, by the way, on the new book. I wanted to start by talking about, for the benefit of our audience, you know, the book's origins and some of the key messages. You know, given the breadth and richness of your background, I'm curious what drove you to explore this particular, the state of women in international affairs work.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kelly. And it's lovely to see you all. Thanks for making the time to be here today, and really thrilled to be able to share this space to discuss all different issues around gender, diplomacy, defense, and development. So to start with, I guess, so I'm a political scientist by background and an international relations scholar. Through my work at the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, we really focus on this whole notion of fixing systems, not women. And this is a kind of recurrent thread that I'll continue to kind of come back to. But because of that, I guess my background, you know, I've been an entrepreneur, I've done research, I've done a lot of extensive travel, particularly throughout the Asia Pacific region, working on all different kinds of diplomacy and development projects in particular. The kind of things that brought me to my book, I suppose, was that I'm always in these spaces, and I was noticing this real trend to kind of gender and representation. In those most senior positions, I would tend not to see women at all, or if I would, they were very noticeable because they were, you know, one in a room of many. When it came to thinking then about kind of impact and influence, I could see world leaders on the stage and folk like Hillary Clinton, folk like Julia Gillard in my home country, the odd few women leading across the region. However, I really wanted to understand, well, how did they get there? What have been some of those challenges and the opportunities along the way? And is it really changing? We kind of hear this theory in my line of work that, well, new institutions in more gender equal times should be more gender equal. So I keep on watching kind of the growth of new organizations working in this space and new policies and all of the rest. And I keep watching, well, are they more gender equal? So this really was the start of what inspired the book. And so from 2017 to 2020, I spent a huge amount of time traveling across 11 different countries, studying, sitting in embassies, sitting in local development contexts, and seeking to understand, well, how were women coping? How were they getting to leadership? What were some of the challenges and kind of the broader institutional trends when got there? There was a huge amount of surprising findings that came out of that. One of the really interesting parts of my research that I delved into was doing some kind of groundbreaking research around queer women in international defense development and diplomacy, and the kind of multifaceted challenges, but also opportunities that come with being a queer leader in these spaces. In addition to that, I found that actually, kind of contrary to what we might expect, militaristic organizations were much more likely to proportionally represent women. That is, if there was 20% of women overall in organizations, there was also likely to be 20% of women in leadership. Now, we didn't see that when it came to development or diplomacy. In fact, we saw a 20 percentage point gap, which remained fairly consistent over a 30-year period in the Australian context. Now that's fascinating. I then looked at the women leaders, and what I noticed, again, over studying almost 4 decades of budgeting, funding kind of data alongside women's representation, was that yes, women's representation was increasing, but funding for diplomacy and development in particular, where women remain kind of majority in some cases, funding was declining. So we have this trend where women are getting into positions of power and leadership in global diplomacy and development at a point in time in which some of these institutions are actually stagnating or indeed shrinking. Now, my research focused more specifically on Australia, but we have noticed some of these trends across other countries. Sweden, for instance, has high representation